Burdis, and I am the principal keeper here at Europa Point Lighthouse.
How long have you been in the service?
I joined Trinity House in March 1965. It was back in March, around about the 29th. And we started at the training school at Harwich. We were there for a month. And during that month we learnt various processes, mainly about the paraffin light, how to clean the Bunsen tubes, operate the paraffin light. We were taught Morse code by light, and also semaphore signals. Also included in the course was how to make bread, and if one could make a bit of bread, one will never go hungry, as they say. And that was we never saw the bread. We made the bread, and it was all passed around to various persons in the depot. Morse code, well, that was quite a handful, really. It was all learned, as I say, by lamp, and I became fairly proficient in it. And of course, expecting to go to these stations around about the service, expecting to use it. It's never been used from that day on. And in various journals in the past, it might even still occur now in some places, they'll have it written down quite regular, signalling practice carried out. And I can guarantee it's never been carried out anywhere in the service stations that I have been to. Well, I left the college, or the school, at the end of April there. And my first station was at the Longstone up off the northeast coast of England. I was supposed to go there for a month, but after a 10-day period, there was a message came through that I had to transfer to Alderney. So it was pack bags, get the local boat, and back into where the devil was it now? Oh dear, I forget the name of the place off Longstone. Never mind, it's immaterial. Local boat ashore, the bus down to the nearest railway station, and then the train from Newcastle down to King's Cross. And from King's Cross down to Weymouth, get the ferry, cross to Guernsey, and next day, local flight from Guernsey to Alderney. Now, Alderney Airport in those days was a grass field with just a short piece of concrete as a runway. And that, hey dear me, the number of times that aircraft have gone off the end of the runway, of the concrete, and just come to a sudden stop, especially when it's been wet. And that was virtually the braking system. And the taking off from Alderney Airport, the aircraft would run down onto the grass area, put its tail into the hedge, engines would really revving, the aircraft would be bouncing up and down, and then he'd let go. And he'd come to the end of the runway, drop over the cliff, engines screaming, and just pick away. But that was, Alderney Airport now today is quite modern to what it was. Anyway, I went to Alderney, and that was, say, the April. I was there for 10 weeks. I've never spent a better 10 weeks anywhere in my life. That was really, it was an eye-opener into Trinity. And I was with some good people there. Jim Bowling, who was just recently retired, he was the principal keeper there. There was a guy called Bob Foster. He was quite a large chap. And I had quite good fun with him. There's also another guy there called Brian Banyan. Well, Bob Foster and Brian Banyan are both out of the job now. And as I said, Jim Bowling just retired not so long ago. 10 weeks at Alderney. I was then went ashore for a month's leave, and then I was down to, let me see, Beachy Head. I was at Beachy Head 3 times over the period, and that's a place to get to. Oh dear me, isn't that a place to get to in the summertime? You walk from a place called Meads after you picked up 1 or 2 bits of groceries, and it's a walk out to the lighthouse, and the shoreline is all stone, rough stone, and walking along that beach with your uniform on, on a hot summer's afternoon, carrying the gear, you lose some sweat. Oh, didn't you lose some sweat? But then again, a good crew out there was with Eric Dove on several occasions, on the 3 occasions I was there, and he's a good sport. We had an incident with Eric once over. He was doing morning watch, and he went outside to throw the rubbish into the water, the old potato peelings and whatnot, and climbing back into the tower up what we call the dog steps. It's just a set of rungs set into the side of the tower. Of course, he's coming up there one hand at a time virtually, one hand and a bucket in the other. And he comes to pull himself into the tower to get hold of the handrails on the outside to pull himself in, and he slipped. Eric was 22 stone, and he went down onto the deck. Anyway, he managed to scramble himself back into the tower. And it was my morning in bed, and all of a sudden I hear this shouting. And when Eric shouted, he shouted. So I didn't take much notice because the other guy had gone ashore to get the post. So as I say, I didn't take much notice because Eric always called me in this manner. And it suddenly dawned on me, he's not down below, he's down the base of the tower. So I shot out of bed, down the stairs, and there he was, moaning and groaning, cursing and swearing. What's the matter? Oh, my ankle! You think you've been murdered. Anyway, it turned out that what had happened, he sprained his ankles. So we had to get him ashore. And the only way we could get him ashore was by helicopter or the lifeboat. Well, the helicopter attempted, but on the landing there's the king post, which used to be a part of the crane system. And they wanted that removed. Well, that was no good at all. It was fastened into the ground. So the helicopter buzzed off, and out came the lifeboat. And in the meantime, the tide had on the rise, and the sea was lifting a bit. But anyway, the lifeboat came, and we have to get Eric out of the tower, don't we? And it was only myself. The other guy was still ashore because it was a short tide, so he went out in the morning. He was coming back in the evening. So how can we do it? Well, I get him strapped up in the stretcher, and strapped up, really wrapped in. And off the side of the tower there's a roller. I put a rope over the top of this roller, which was used for hoisting gear up into the next level. Attach the hook to the base of the stretcher, give the end to the lifeboat crew, and they started pulling. So Eric goes out of the door now, head first, slowly but surely, with me trying to keep his feet off the ground. And as they're lifting, Eric's lifting, and I'm getting the weight of 22 stone. Anyway, he swings out of the tower, and when they then gently lowered him down to the ground. Moved him across to the king post, got the crane erected now, and winched him up slowly on the rope hoist, and he's going up, and all of a sudden he swings out over the side because the lifeboat crew have the other end of the stretcher, and he screams, "My ankles! My ankles!" Oh, shut up, there's nothing wrong with your ankles. You're not going anywhere. Hey, if you've seen his face, I thought he was going to slide out of the stretcher. Anyway, get him lowered down into the lifeboat, and away he shuts off. And that was just a little incident. I mean, it took us all day to get him out of the tower and into the lifeboat, but we managed, or at least I managed, with the assistance of the lifeboat crew. And away he went. And I think I've seen Eric since then, once on one occasion. And he was right as rain, full of the joys of spring, and he said thank you very much for all he did for all I did for him. But it was only something I would do for anybody. Well, I was at Beachy Head 3 times on several occasions. I also paid a visit to the Hanwar and to the caskets. This period is all in training, picking up the operation of different lighthouses. The Caskets, I was out there in February and March in 1966, and what weather! Oh, it was beautiful, beautiful. We're doing a lot of whitewashing around the base, around the outside of the station, doing the water, cleaning the water tanks out because we had rainwater collection there. So we cleaned out the tanks and busy whitewashing, and the heat, phew, it was shorts and bearskin, I should say. It was that hot. I was there for 2 months, and another good guy was there. He's dead now, of course, unfortunately. A good guy who was Ozzy Murphy. How could that man talk? Oh dear me, it was fatal. It was fatal to sit down at lunchtime. As you sit down, have your lunch, and he'd start talking about his experiences and one thing and another. And the next thing you knew, it was cup of tea time, 4 o'clock, and the washing up still on the table. Oh dear me, what a man. A good sort. A good old sort he was. But sadly missed. After that, well, I came home in the April that year of '66, and it was winter. What a comparison to February and March, bright, sunny, and lovely and warm. And come back to the UK and up in the north of England. And God, it was frost and snow and rain and sleet. It was terrible. I was glad to get back down south where it was warmer after the month's leave. My first station of permanent appointment was at Lynmouth Foreland. That was in 1966, and I was there for something like 2.5 years. Again with a couple of good guys. One has since died on station. Well, we think he died on station. Certainly, he was dead on arrival at hospital, and that was Frank Harris. Well known throughout the service, well known. And the other guy was Ted Dobbin. He is now living in Linton in North Devon. He took early retirement, I believe. Well, as I say, I was at Lynmouth Foreland for 2.5 years, and my next appointment was at Strumble Head. I was only there for a short period before I was transferred down to Sark. And that would be somewhere around about the late '69, early '70s when I went to Sark. Sark, that was a good station. All these stations are good. It all depends who you're with. Another good guy was out there that I got on well with was the PK there, a local chap, and his name was Norman Wackley. Now Norman was a fisherman. And he had his own boat there, and several times on my day off I would go out with him, going out fishing on long lines or pots. And it got on so well with him that he actually let me use one of his dinghies. So I bought myself an outboard motor. He gave me half a dozen fishing pots, lobster pots, and there I go on my day off out of the dinghy with some fishing line, set the pots, do a bit of fishing, and pass my day off that way. But Sark's a nice place. I really like Sark. No traffic there, whatever. The only when you're going to get knocked down by the drunken tractor drivers, but they avoided you or you avoided them, as the case may be. Sark, yeah, the first 6 months, well, I really went to town there. But after the novelty wore off, I really enjoyed myself. I enjoyed Sark. It was quite a good station. And I was transferred from Sark to the Hanwar with the introduction of helicopters. And all the crew from Sark transferred to the Hanwar, and the keepers from the Hanwar actually transferred to Sark. But that only lasted for a short period because the bailiwick of Guernsey stipulated that the cottages at the Torterville were for the keepers at the Hanwar. So therefore, the Hanwar keepers had to be transferred back to the Hanwar, and Sark keepers transferred back to Sark, i.e. from Sark they went to the Hanwar, and they reverted back to Sark after about 12 to 18 months. The helicopter operations at the Hanwar were done by Bristow's helicopters at the time. They were the company who were doing Trinity House relief work, and I had the fortunate business to be the first to be lifted onto the Hanwar. We were lifted from Guernsey Airport, flown out to the Hanwar, and then winched down out of the aircraft onto the landing. There was no proper landing there at the time. But during the period I was there, a concrete helipad was erected, or I suppose you could call it erected, on the sea level, on the rocks area just below the tower. An area was blasted out, made level, and various tons of concrete were flown in, poured out, and made a level landing for the helicopter, which was quite useful because the chopper could then put down, one could get in equipment in and out of the helicopter much easier. But I believe now they have a helipad on the top. Well, Sark I was there for just a little over 12 months, and in that period of 12 months I did a foolish thing and got married. So the wife was complaining that she didn't like me too much away, as at that time we do 2 months on and stationed a month off, and I quite enjoyed it. Hanwar was a good station. It's a good station. If you liked shellfish, you would get crabs there any time of the day on low water, and any size you wanted. Fishing was not so hot. Fishing was not so hot at the Hanwar. Although we did catch a couple of congers or two. In fact, we had one conger and I brought it in this particular morning, and Norman the PK went down to clean it out, and the conger had been in the base of the tower for something like 4 hours. So no one just picks it up by the mouth and snap. He took his thumb. And he come back up the tower cursing and swearing, and this conger, other than out of the water, and well, you could virtually say it was dead. Normal nervous reaction. As he put his finger in his mouth, he just closed his mouth on his finger and gave him a nasty bite. It really was a nasty bite. So we bandaged him up, put a plaster on, and then he went down, and he gave that conger hell. He cleaned it out, and we had a nice meal out of it. The main belly part, we made a nice meal out of that. We got some whatever we had on the station, bits of breadcrumbs. We made some breadcrumbs, got some eggs and beat them up, put some pepper and salt, onion, bit of spice. We made up a stuffing and stuffed this the belly of the conger, put it in the oven very, very slowly. It must have been in there for 2 hours at least, and we had that for evening meal. Oh, I've never tasted anything as nice. It was beautiful, beautiful. And we had several other bits of fish there, but not a lot. We did have the fortunate point of Norman did bring some lobster pots with him, and we tried them, and we only got this one lobster in the period I was with him, but it was a good one, 4.5 pounds. It was the only lobster we had there, and it must have been in a battle or been rolled on something, because the main claws, they were cracked right around, both of them. So whether it had been in a battle or something had dropped on his claws, but how he'd got them broken I don't know. But this 4.5 pound lobster, that went down a treat between two of us. The other guy who was with us at the Hanwar at the time was a guy called Jeff Gurdon. He was not into fish. So Norman and I were laughing. We were eating nice, what do we say, conger eel steaks or fresh lobster, and there was this other guy eating bread and jam or cheese sandwiches or something of that nature. Well, from Hanwar I put in a request for transfer to a married quarters, and I was posted then to St Anne's Head in West Wales, very close to Milford Haven. And first principal keeper there was, let me think, Bob Ratty. Now Bob had come off Skocum not long before. Bob was a case. He was a character in himself. As many people could tell many stories about Bob Ratty, and Bob Ratty could tell many stories about people. He was there for about, or at least I was with him for about 18 months, approximately. And he was transferred, I forget where he was transferred to. And the next PK that came down was Ozzie Spence. Now, Ozzie was made up to PK from Flamborough. Ozzie is a Geordie guy, a bit like myself, but he comes from a bit further north. And we got on well. And he was there for about, let me think, it must have been 4, possibly 5 years. About 4 or 5 years before he was transferred. And the next PK after that I was with was Eddie Matthews. And Eddie was still there when I left St Anne's way back in around about 82. St Anne's, yes, St Anne's was a busy station, very busy station. A lot of helicopter work there. It was the main base for transferring the keepers to the Skocum Lighthouse, South Bishop Lighthouse, and the Smalls. That's what it started off with. In the beginning, it was with Bristow's helicopters, and later, in about 12 to 18 months afterwards, a firm from the East Coast called Bonds, they got the contract. And to this day, they still have the contract for helicopter work with Trinity House. Helicopters, yes. We did a lot of work at St Anne's. Myself, Malcolm Smith Gosling, and the 3 previously mentioned PKs. We did a lot of work there, and we did it all ourselves. Anything that had to be done, it was brought to the lighthouse from the depot or from London. It was dumped there, and the 3 of us would make up the loads of whatever was to be transported to wherever, and we never lost a thing. The only thing that came adrift from any piece of apparatus was a cover from a cement mixer from Swansea Depot. Now, this was a fiberglass cover, and as the mixer was being lifted and flown out to sea, it had swung a little bit, or the strop had eased this cover off its catches, and it had flown away out to the sea, but there was nothing disastrous. But other than that, anything that was transported from St Anne's to the small Skocum and or South Bishop, which was made up by us, was got there in the same condition as it left. We never lost a thing, never a thing. Since I'd left there, crews have changed. People have complained because they're not trained for this, they're not trained for that. Well, I turn around and say, there's only one training you want, and that's from the engineer. The engineer trained me, he showed me what to do, how to do it, and that's the only training you'll ever get, and that's the only training you'll ever want. Because that's the man who can tell you, he's the man that knows. He taught me, and I did all the underslinging. Others could do it, but I did it because I enjoyed it, I enjoyed doing it, and I was in and out there like greased lightning. No problems whatever. Also at St Anne's is a big station, and there's a lot of grass there. Now at first, when the helicopter came, they would put down anywhere. Then we got a helicopter pad set up. We had fuel tanks set up for refueling. We had the firefighting equipment, of course. And we also started cutting the grass, because at various times, if there was one disaster out there, and we had the Navy in there, we had the RAF in there, helicopter work, doing surveys, sightings for this oil spill. But that's a different story. That's a long drawn out effort, and quite complicated, with people coming, people going, people coming, people going. But St Anne's is a nice station. I got on well with the people locally. I got on well with the crew there, and I was sorry to leave there. And given the chance, if I was to leave here, I wouldn't mind going back there. But there again, saying that, it would all depend on who's there and what their attitude is. If it's the same situation, whereas we're not doing this, we're not doing that, we're not trained for this, we're not trained for that, then I think I'd probably want to go elsewhere. As I said, when the three of us were there was only a 3-man station at the time, and work got done, no problems whatever. Well, I was at St Anne's for something like 8.5 years. I was then transferred down to the Longships of Land's End. Longships lies about 1.5 miles off the coast. We went there, let me think, it was somewhere about 82. Yeah, about 82, early 82 maybe. And I was there until October 1984. In this period, duty on station had turned from 2 months on and a month off to a month on and a month off. And I got a bit of getting used to, a month on and a month off. I'd always been, you go to a station, you'd unpack your bag, you put your feet up. The first thing I did was make a bed. That's the most important. Never mind about putting things away. The first thing I ever did was to make the bed. To me, that was important. After that, I stole my gear. And next thing you knew, it was time to pack the bags and back on the helicopter on the way home. A month had passed, just like that, so quick. And it seemed a waste of time going to me. A month on, a month off, soon I got onto the place, settled down, and it was time for relief clean and away home again. Longships, well, it was alright. It was alright in the summer. You would get out onto the helipad on the top and do a bit of sunbathing. You go down at the landing, have a walk around, do a bit of sunbathing down on the landings, but one had to be careful of the seas there. Winter time, yes, it was rough. Many times the seas would come up there, up over the top, and a couple of occasions taking part of the helipad away. These helipads on these lighthouses, the outer ring of the metal framework is detachable, i.e. when a heavy sea comes up and hits the outer ring, if it's heavy enough, the sea is heavy enough, it will disturb the outer ring, carry it away, and save damaging the main structure of the helipad and also the main structure of the lighthouse itself. So, and also on the outer ring there are safety nets. So anybody who's up on top, anything occurs, they can roll off the heli deck and into the safety net. Quite secure. They'll be quite safe. From 84, I was transferred then to, I wasn't transferred. A position came up for a keeper at this station, Europa Point. There was my elder daughter had just started the comprehensive school in Cornwall, and she was 11-year-old. There was talk then that Longships were due for automation. So I thought to myself, well, if this is going automated, she just started comprehensive school. That means another move, another school, start off again, different people that she knows, etc., etc., etc. I thought, well, if I put in for Europa Point, I can at least get my 2 daughters through school, settled, with no disturbances. So I put pen to paper and didn't think I would get the job or the position. But it turned out that here I am. At the time there were 14 other people applied for this position. So I must have been lucky. The gods must have been shining on me that day. So I came out here in 84, in October 84. I flew out on the 9th and I started duty on the 11th, taking over from a local keeper who was due to retire on that particular day. Up till I came out, keepers were here, yes, the keepers here were the principal keeper from UK and then 2 local keepers. As time marched on, up till about 1980 perhaps, it was all, as I say, principal keeper from UK and local keepers. 1980, I believe, that one of the local keepers here retired sick, and they brought a man and wife out from the UK. That was David Price. He was here until about 1984-85. When I came out in 84, I took over from the last local keeper, and the personnel at the station at the present time are all UK based. There's myself as the principal keeper. The senior assistant keeper here is Terry Jersty. Now Terry, I first met Terry way back in the early 70s, where again, this was at Sark. I was keeper in charge at the time, and Terry came out there as a supernumerary. He was out at Sark for a month, and it was said many times that in the service, when I first joined way back in 65, that you'll come across people in the job, and there are times where you'll never ever see them again. And it's a fact. There's one guy in the service now. He was at the training school with me way back in 65, and from that day on I've never clapped eyes on him. I've never seen him to this day. And as I say, Terry, I first met him way back in the early 70s at Sark when he came out as a supernumerary, and the next time I saw him was when he came out here. He was appointed way back, that was in 85. So from that 20-year period, I'd never seen him from that day till he arrived here. And the other chap here, he's a single man. He's on station purely and simply while they do this filling in for the principal keeper who departed here. So he's making up the third man until the place is automated, and we shall be then shipped back to the UK.
What exactly is this station like?
Well, Europa Point Lighthouse is it's one of it's the only overseas posting within the Trinity House service, and Europa Point Lighthouse is 150. Let me see, 152, 1841. Yeah, 152 years old. The lighthouse itself was erected from 1838 onwards. The light itself was first illuminated in the 1st of August 1841. From that day on, there's been a light illuminated here in various modes of operators. It started off possibly with the sperm oils in the 1840s, and it went on, graduated through the I would say probably vegetable oils, through to the paraffin oil, and electrified. The station itself is quite large. We have three accommodation here. We're all in a bungalow setting. The tower is separate to the dwellings, and the fog signal is separate to the tower and dwellings. The present fog signal is compressed air, Super Typhoon, and the present fog signal was installed around about 1956. Up till the time of the compressed air fog signal, we had an explosive fog signal, and the explosive fog signal was first installed, if I remember rightly off the top of my head, about 1889. So from 1889 up till 56, we had an explosive fog signal. The tower itself is 162, well, to the light is 162 feet above the water level. Before this, the tower, or before this present height, the tower used to be about 150 feet from sea level. In 1954 to 56, there was a reconstruction of the tower. The place was scaffolded up, the lantern was dismantled, hoisted, and an extra 12 feet erected on top of the original tower, then the lantern clamped back down. This was in order to put in a sublight facing over to the southwest. This light being a fixed red light, shines out over the southwest to over an area called the Pearl Rocks, which lie off the Spanish coast. It's a low-lying reef which lies under the water at high water, but is visible at low water. Let's think now about this tower. Originally, going back through the order book, I would say that the interior, the stairwork or the stairs were all timber. When the stone staircase was put in, we can't find out. There's no mention of it in the order book, and there's no mention of it in the repair book. So it's impossible to say when the stone staircase was put in. But definitely in the order book, I would say that the stairs and the interior, the floors, etc., were all timber. In fact, in the order book, the keepers here in the early years really got the slating. They were not doing the job efficiently, and the place was going to wreck and ruin through wet and or dry rot. And they really let the place go into dilapidation, I think, by what one can read into what is written in the order book. The order book here is quite unique. It goes back from the original. There are a few pages missing out. In fact, in one section, there are 20 years lost. Where this 20 years has gone, it's probably become detached, disposed of, and lost forever. So whatever was written in those 20 years, one will never know. But the station book is unique, as I say. It goes back from the early beginnings, and there are two notable entries in the book, mainly by persons of note. One is from a visit to the lighthouse by Prince Albert, one of the sons of Queen Victoria. He paid a visit way back in the 1800s as Prince Albert. His next visit was about 7 years later. He was then known as Prince Albert, the Duke of Edinburgh. And another notable entry was in 1921, when the station was visited by the Crown Prince of Japan, Crown Prince Hirohito. Hirohito is well known for his connections during the Japanese War, but that's another story. And he died, about 12 or 15 years ago. But he did visit here way back in 21. And also his brother visited the station on New Year's Day in 1922. So those are two notable entries and two very famous, or you may say famous, personalities who have visited the station. Otherwise, the station, as I say, way back got a slating, and the local agent was informed or instructed that he had to visit the station at least every month. And going back through the order book, you can turn the pages. Station visited by Captain Blogsy, you might call him, Trinity Agent. Visitor station, Trinity Agent, visitor station, Trinity Agent. In fact, there's a whole section there where there's nothing else but visitor station, by the Trinity agent. There was a fatality at this station. What happened, we don't know. It's way back in 1905. A guy called Wren, W-R-E-N, was a keeper at the station. And this particular night, he was spotted by the boundary wall or by the perimeter of the station round about lighting up time, and he was never seen again. His body was washed up along the beach some 3 days afterwards, and a quick post-mortem and a quick burial. They do that in Gibraltar. You'll die that day, and you can die today and be buried the same day. Summer or winter. In the summer, I can imagine it. I can see why. But as the heat gets rather strong and deterioration sets in very quickly, but even in the winter time, you can die today, this morning, and you can be buried in the afternoon. It happens to many people all the time. So I could say that was the only fatality we've ever had at this station. Other people have died on station, but then they were keepers' families. So the least said about that, the better, I think. What else now? Yes, this station, before it was put onto main supply, all water was caught off the roofs. It was rainwater catchment, and in the yards of number 1 and number 3 dwelling, there are water tanks which hold something like 12,000 gallons each. And this is discontinued, but the water is still collected, and we use it now purely and simply for washing down. The pump is still connected, and we just switch on the pump and use the water at these tanks for, as I say, for washing down the dwellings. Because during the summertime it's rather dry, and this is our main period for mist and fog. June, July, August, September. And when the mist and fog comes in, excuse me, it does leave a lot of sandy deposit. In fact, it gets so bad that you've got to wash down the accommodation. The tower, unfortunately, we can't wash down. But when it rains, when all this sand and dirt comes off the tower, it's just like a mudslide at the base. There's quite a lot of dirt, it runs down the tower, and the difference one can see is quite amazing.
What's it like living in Gibraltar then?
Well, fortunately I don't live in Gibraltar. I live on the outskirts. Gibraltar, to me, hasn't got a lot to offer. I've been here, 9 years. And even in the beginning, if I'd known what Gibraltar was like, I would never have bothered coming. The place was filthy, absolutely filthy. Just to the east of the lighthouse, there's an area which they call the car chute. And when I came here, any vehicle which was not used was just shot over the side. And everything was just dumped in the water. Everything, anything and everything. Cars, fridges, freezers, all household rubbish. Anything and everything was shot over the cliff and into the water. Also, just near the car chute, rubbish was thrown over the wall. And I'll tell you, if you wanted anything, all you had to do was go over to this tip area and you would get it. If you wanted a part for the car, a wing, a wheel, a door, a steering wheel, anything that had been broken up, it was just thrown over the side. I'll tell you what about Gibraltar. You could find anything you want, but you couldn't find money. There's no way. They'd throw anything away, but they would never drop a penny. My God, they were tight-fisted. But Gibraltar is a dirty place. It has, to me, it's got nothing to offer. The main street, it's the same from one end to the other. The shops, cameras, watches, cameras, watches. No prices. You go in and ask a price. No, there's no prices on anything. You have to haggle a little bit, but there's no competition. That's the trouble with Gibraltar. There's no competition. You can go into a place at one end of the town, ask a price of something, excuse me, and it'll be the same price at the other end. Various people have the monopoly, and let's say there's no competition in the town at all. So what's the point? In fact, there are various articles you can buy in Gibraltar, and it's damn sight cheaper in UK. It's supposed to be a duty-free area. The only thing that's duty-free is whiskey and tobacco. Well, whiskey, booze, put it that way, spirits especially, and tobacco. Other than that, I say you pay through the nose.
These characters I've seen outside at night with the walkie-talkies talking to these fast boats, are they still smuggling it?
Well, it's not, in a sense, smuggling. What they're doing is they're running tobacco, boxes of Winston, and in each of these speedboats or powerboats, they'll carry something like 15 or 20 boxes of Winston, and in each box there's something like 5,000 cigarettes. Now they're running them into Spain. It's legally, they do it from Gibraltar because Gibraltar government encourage it because they're making money out of it. But it's illegal to to import it into Spain because it's all going in there duty free and shipped out off the coastline rapidly and dispersed around various parts of Spain. Now that is illegal. These walkie-talkies and all this tobacco running is all government sponsored. There's no doubt about it. The government making money out of it, so they encourage it. I am an amateur radio operator as a hobby. Now these people monitor the Spanish customs boats and helicopter. And of course, invariable they use a 2 meter handset, and invariably they will encroach on the amateur frequencies. So they soon get told off what to do. They come back out with a mouthful of abuse. So what you do is to clear them off your frequencies, put a carrier on, and they've got to move because all they're going to get is going beep, and they'll not be able to hear a thing, they'll not be able to transmit. So we can still move them off the frequencies. These tobacco runners, they do dangerous things. 2 or 3 occasions, the helicopters have come down over them, and they've shot off flares at them. Now that's naughty, really naughty. It wouldn't be such a bad plan if one of these helicopters actually dropped onto these powerboats. That would sort of wake their ideas up. But unfortunately, it would cause a bit of a disaster. There is a bit of drug running occurs here, and several times we've seen the customs boat and the helicopter chasing boats in. Whether they've actually got drugs on board at the time, one can't tell. But I have seen several instances where the customs boats and the helicopters have chased these powerboats into the harbour and followed them right in. They're not supposed to really, but they do. They follow them right in, and the local police start complaining. Then, in fact, there was one instance where a helicopter was flying over the end of the runway on the harbour side, and somebody phoned the police. So the police goes herring down in the police car, the blue light flashing, and it was said that the police car chased away the helicopter. Now, if you can believe that, you can believe anything. A police car chasing away a helicopter. They've got some funny ideas here. About Gibraltar, carrying on about Gibraltar and the prices of things. No prices being on. I was in England recently, And we went into Marks and Spencer to buy one or two things for Christmas presents. And one particular item we purchased was a T-shirt in Marks and Spencer's. A couple of quid. Came back to Gibraltar, saw exactly the same T-shirt, £5.50. So, as I say, in Gibraltar, you pay through the nose. To me, Gibraltar has not got a lot to offer. Historically, yes, it is a historical place. And during the Battle of Trafalgar, when Nelson was mortally wounded, he was brought to Gibraltar. And from that day on, I still think that the Gibraltarians are waiting for Nelson to come back and get them out of the mire that they're in at the present time. They have a lot of problem, or I think they say it's a problem with the Spanish. I think it's only home brewed. If they were to pull the finger out and become more amiable, I think the relations between Gibraltar and Spain would be much better. The Gibraltarians want self-determination. Yeah, give them self-determination, give them home rule, whatever they want, independence, but don't give them another penny from the taxpayer. Because at the present time, there's been a lot of rundown with the military, and they're complaining like the devil because they're not getting the money from the income. The unions play up about the MOD cutbacks. They're wanting all the benefits that go with it, i.e. redundancy monies. They get the redundancy money. They want exactly the same, and then they want to be re-employed in the same position as they were left by the people who were taking over. An instance occurred a few years ago with the British Telecom. They were running the satellite telephone service. British Telecom pulled out. The local unions created merry hell. They wanted all the redundancies that went with the close down. Sorry, I beg your pardon, it was cable and wireless. So as I say, the unions want all this monies for the men. British Telecom took over. The men were re-employed in exactly the same status. All that was happening was just changing from cable and wireless to British Telecom. There was no redundancies actually occurred, but as cable and wireless pulled out, another firm moved in. The men thought they were made redundant. They got all the redundancy and they were re-employed straight away. They want money hand over fist, the locals. They want money hand over fist, from the government down to the road sweeper. And a lot of this money that they're getting comes out of the British taxpayer. So if they want independence, give them independence, but not one more penny out of the British taxpayer. And I think when I leave here this next year, I feel I shan't be sorry to go. Because, as I said, Gibraltar to me has nothing to offer. And anything you want, you pay through the nose. And it's far cheaper to hang on. If you want anything, hang on, go back to UK and pay the VAT, but you'll still get it cheaper. Otherwise, my time in the service up to the present day, I've enjoyed it. I've been with some good people. I've been with one or two that haven't been so good, but they're few and far between. I'll mention no names, no backbiting. And we'll leave it at that. I hope this little chat has been a wee bit informative. If not, tough luck. And I wish the cameraman and all the best in his future project.
Thanks a lot.